The Galactic Federation's classification of Earth as a death world was not a decision made lightly. For millennia, the universe had known of planets with harsh climates, aggressive fauna, or unstable ecosystems. Death worlds were a rare category, reserved for those where survival was an extraordinary feat, where the very air, land, and sea seemed intent on snuffing out life. Earth, teeming with hostile environments and apex predators, earned its classification with ease. Yet humans, in their audacity, had not only survived, but thrived. They had ventured into space, built colonies, and, against all odds, applied to join the Galactic Federation. Skeptical, the Federation allowed one human to prove her mettle at the Galactic Academy of Combat and Strategy, an institution designed to forge the galaxy's finest military minds. That human was Kara Voss. The day of her arrival was marked with quiet anticipation and whispered disbelief. The Academy, located on the shimmering neutral planet of Voxaris, was a masterpiece of alien engineering. Its structures floated above crystalline waters, connected by bridges of pure light. The cadets, a mix of species with an array of forms, colors, and sizes, buzzed with curiosity about their newest peer. "Did you hear?" whispered Treval, a cephalic Axian cadet, whose gelatinous form shimmered as he spoke. "The human is from Earth, a death world." "I heard they wrestle predators for sport," said Cass, a Voltinian cadet with bright avian plumage. Her feathers bristled nervously. "I heard they barely survived their own extinction," muttered Brorth, a hulking scanth with metallic skin. Their murmurs ceased as Commander Vezhak entered the room. Towering and imposing, with scales that glowed faintly in the ambient light, he commanded attention without effort. He looked out at the cadets, his sharp, bioluminescent eyes narrowing as he prepared to speak. "This year we welcome a new species to the Academy," Vezhak announced, his voice reverberating through the chamber. "Kara Voss of Earth, a Deathworlder." All eyes turned to the human who stepped forward from the shadows. Kara's presence was unassuming yet magnetic. She wore the Academy's uniform, a fitted gray and gold ensemble. With ease, her movements confident and controlled. Her sharp green eyes surveyed the room, betraying no emotion. Some cadets stared in open curiosity, others regarded her with thinly veiled suspicion. To them, humans were an enigma, fragile-looking beings who had somehow clawed their way into the stars. "Cadet Voss," Vezhak continued, "Earth's environment is known to be one of the most dangerous in the galaxy. Its species are uniquely adapted to survive conditions most of you cannot fathom. You will now prove that you belong here, among the best." Kara met his gaze without flinching. "Understood, Commander." The first test came swiftly. The Academy wasted no time in separating the capable from the unworthy. On her second day, Kara found herself standing before the towering gates of the Syraxis Arena, a colossal structure capable of simulating any planetary biome. "Welcome to your survival simulation," Vezhak said, addressing the assembled cadets. His tone was matter-of-fact, but his words carried weight. "You will be placed in environments designed to test your adaptability, resilience, and ingenuity. You will survive for 72 hours with minimal equipment. Failure is not an option." Kara's assigned biome was a desert. As the gates opened, she stepped into a world of blistering heat and glaring sunlight. Twin suns burned overhead, casting long shadows across the shifting sands. "Easy," Kara muttered to herself. She immediately set to work, her mind racing through survival protocols. First, she fashioned a shelter using synthetic cacti and fragments of rock scattered across the arena. Then she dug shallow trenches to collect moisture, recalling techniques she had learned during survival training in Earth's deserts. By nightfall, she had a small fire burning and a meal prepared from the simulated fauna that roamed the dunes. When the simulation ended, Kara emerged unscathed. The other cadets were not so fortunate. Kess's gelatinous body had nearly desiccated in the heat. Kess's feathers were singed, and Broth's metallic hide bore scratches from fending off simulated predators. "How?" Traval asked, his voice a mixture of awe and disbelief. Kara raised an eyebrow. "How what? How did you survive so easily?" This was mild," Kara replied with a shrug. "It reminded me of the Mojave Desert back home, nothing a little ingenuity couldn't handle." The cadets exchanged incredulous glances. "Mild?" Kess repeated. "This was one of the harshest simulations they've ever run." Kara smirked. "You should try dealing with Venus's sulfuric acid rains sometime, or the Arctic tundras of Earth during a blizzard. Now that's a challenge." Word of Kara's performance spread quickly. By the time she entered her next challenge, Galactic Combat 101, she was already a subject of fascination and debate among the cadets. The course was legendary for its intensity. Led by Commander Vezok himself, it simulated large-scale battles in various alien environments, pitting cadets against highly advanced AI opponents. Many cadets had dropped out after just one session. As the simulation began, Kara's team was thrust into a dense jungle battlefield. The objective was straightforward: capture the enemy base. Kara quickly took stock of her surroundings and her teammates, Traval, Kess, and Broth. "Here's the plan," she said, her tone leaving no room for argument. "Broth, you're on defense. Use your armor to block their initial assault. Travel, you'll scout ahead and report enemy positions. Kess, you're fast. Flank their guards and create a distraction. I'll lead the main push." The others hesitated, unsure of whether to follow her lead. But there was something in her tone, an undeniable confidence, that made them fall in line. The battle unfolded with precision. Kara used the terrain to her advantage, setting traps and ambushes that neutralized the enemy forces with surgical efficiency. When the AI guards guarding the enemy base proved too tough to penetrate, she improvised, using the jungle's native plant life to create explosive distractions that allowed her team to slip through undetected. When the simulation ended, Vezok gathered the cadets for debriefing. "Your performance exceeded expectations," he said, his glowing eyes fixed on Kara. "Explain." Kara crossed her arms. The enemy tactics were predictable and the terrain was forgiving. Back home, you'd never get an opponent that dumb or an environment this tame. The room fell silent. Vezok's scales dimmed, a rare sign of shock among Zorvians. Around her, the other cadets stared, speechless. "You call that tame?" Vezok finally managed. Kara's lips quirked into a grin. "Commander, you've clearly never met an Australian saltwater crocodile." For the first time in his illustrious career, Commander Vezok was rendered speechless. The Galactic Federation prided itself on its extensive knowledge of the universe. With trillions of inhabited planets cataloged and analyzed, its archives brimmed with information on countless species, cultures, and ecosystems. Yet, the inclusion of Earth, a certified deathworld, into the Federation roster had sent ripples of curiosity and skepticism through its ranks. How had such a fragile-looking species not only survived their planet, but thrived enough to reach the stars? As the first human cadet, Kara Voss was now the center of attention at the Galactic Academy of Combat and Strategy. Unbeknownst to her, her presence had sparked a flurry of research within the Academy's xenobiology and strategy departments. The Academy's brightest minds were determined to uncover the truth behind humanity's resilience. The Academy's research division was located deep within the floating city, its sleek towers blending seamlessly into the skies of Voxaris. Here, in a laboratory filled with holographic displays and glowing data streams, Professor Yilvin of the Valtari species studied Earth's records with fascination. A spindly, translucent being with elongated limbs and a head that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, Yilvin was an expert in survival biology. He was drawn to Earth's contradictory nature, a planet that was both a cradle of life and a crucible of death. "Impossible," he murmured, running a clawed finger through a hologram depicting Earth's biodiversity. "No species should survive such extremes without significant evolutionary sacrifices." His assistant, a Tithari named Lyric, chimed in. "Professor, humans appear to be generalists. They're not particularly strong, fast, or durable compared to other species. How could they adapt to such diverse conditions?" Yilvin paused the data stream and projected a map of Earth. "Look at this planet. Deserts, rainforests, tundras, oceans teeming with predators. Earth is a crucible of constant pressure. Survival here requires versatility, creativity, and an extraordinary ability to learn and adapt." Lyric tilted his head. "So, their strength lies in their minds?" Yilvin's head pulsed with bright blue light, the Valtari equivalent of a nod. "Their intelligence and social structures are unique. They evolved not just to survive, but to thrive. By working together, by innovating, they've turned their weaknesses into strengths." "But why do they call it a death world if it's their home?" Lyric asked. Yelvin's glow dimmed, indicating thoughtfulness. "Because on Earth, death is always close. Their entire history is a testament to their constant battle against extinction, from predators to natural disasters, from disease to their own conflicts." Meanwhile, Kara Voss was unaware of the academic fervor her presence had ignited. She was far more concerned with the daily challenges of the Academy, where every test seemed designed to push cadets to their breaking point. The latest challenge was no exception. The cadets were assembled in the Gravitas Dome, a massive zero-gravity arena designed for combat simulations. Commander Vezik stood at the center, his imposing figure bathed in the pale light of the artificial sky. "Today's lesson," Vezok began, his voice booming, "is adaptability in variable gravity environments. Many of you come from worlds with stable gravitational fields. In the real galaxy, you will encounter environments that defy your instincts and training. Adapt or fail." The dome's floor shimmered as the simulation began. The cadets found themselves in an alien landscape of floating islands and cascading waterfalls suspended in a gravity field that shifted unpredictably. As the cadets scrambled to adjust, Kara's analytical mind kicked into high gear. She quickly noticed the pattern in the gravitational shifts, an oscillation that repeated every 30 seconds. "Listen up," she shouted to her team, which included Kess, Travell, and Brorth. "The gravity shifts every 30 seconds. Time your movements to match the cycle, and don't fight the flow. Use it." Her teammates hesitated for a moment before following her lead. Kara launched herself from one floating island to another, her movements fluid and precise. She used the low-gravity moments to cover distance and the high-gravity moments to stabilize her landings. The other cadets struggled, many of them flailing helplessly or getting caught in the gravitational shifts. From the observation deck, Vezok watched with growing intrigue. "Remarkable," he muttered to himself. "She not only adapts, but excels in conditions most species would find disorienting." The challenge ended with Kara's team securing the highest score, a result that left many cadets in awe and a few in resentment. "How does she do it?" Kes whispered to Traval as they left the arena. "It's like she can see the solution before the problem even presents itself." "She's a deathworlder," Traval replied. "They're built for chaos." But Kara didn't see it that way. To her, the Academy's challenges were tame compared to the realities of Earth. She remembered nights spent camping in the wilderness where the threat of bears or venomous snakes was real. She remembered the hurricanes that battered her hometown and the wildfires that devoured ancient human explorers who braved the unknown with nothing but courage and ingenuity. The Academy's simulations were impressive, but they lacked the raw unpredictability of Earth. Back in the research lab, Yogan and Lyric had made a breakthrough. "Oh, Professor," Lyric said excitedly, "I've compiled the data on Earth's predators. It's staggering." Yilvin scanned the holographic projection, which displayed Earth's apex predators, lions, sharks, crocodiles, and more. "Fascinating," he said. "These creatures are designed for efficiency, yet humans evolved alongside them. How?" "They didn't just adapt to avoid predators," Lyric replied. "They became the ultimate predator. They used tools, fire, and strategy to level the playing field." Yilvin's glow pulsed brighter. "Remarkable. It's no wonder they view the galaxy's challenges as mild. They've been training for this since the dawn of their existence." That evening, Kara was summoned to Vezek's office. The room was stark and utilitarian, with walls lined with tactical maps and displays of alien weaponry. Vezek stood behind a sleek metallic desk, his glowing eyes fixed on Kara as she entered. "Cadet Voss," he began, his tone measured, "your performance continues to exceed expectations. I have questions." Kara stood at attention. "Sir?" "What drives you? How does a species from a world so hostile rise to these heights?" Kara thought for a moment before answering. "Survival, Commander. On Earth we don't get a choice. The environment is unforgiving, and we're not the strongest or fastest species, but we adapt, we innovate, and we work together." Vezok regarded her silently for a moment. "You make it sound simple, yet many species have perished under similar conditions." Kara allowed herself a small smile. "With respect, sir, they weren't human." Vezok's scales dimmed briefly, a sign of contemplation. "Very well, but know this, Cadet. The galaxy is far more dangerous than Earth. Do not let your confidence become arrogance." "Understood, sir," Kara replied, her tone steady. As she left the office, Kara felt a flicker of satisfaction. She didn't need to prove herself to the Academy. Earth's history had already done that. All she needed to do was survive, and if there was one thing humans excelled at, it was survival. The Galactic Academy of Combat and Strategy, with its soaring towers and shimmering holographic displays, was more than just a training ground. It was a crucible where future leaders of the Federation were forged. Kara Voss's presence, however, had turned that crucible into a pressure cooker of intrigue. The first human ever admitted to the Academy, a species hailing from the infamous Deathworld Earth, was a phenomenon none of the other cadets could ignore. Even among her peers, her demeanor set her apart. Where others showed awe or trepidation in the face of the Academy's challenges, Kara carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had faced worse. For her, every test felt like a puzzle waiting to be solved, every simulation an opportunity to outthink the system. But Kara had begun to notice something else. She wasn't just adapting to the Academy was starting to adapt to her. It was the morning of the next major test, a large-scale tactical simulation that was part of the Federation's most rigorous combat training module. Kara stood in the preparation chamber, watching as her fellow cadets donned their equipment. The air was thick with nervous energy, as Commander Vezok's instructions echoed in their minds. Today's exercise will test not only your combat skills, but also your ability to think strategically under pressure, Vezok had announced. The battlefield will shift dynamically. The objective: eliminate the enemy's command unit while keeping your team operational. The battlefield was a sprawling holographic recreation of a war-torn alien city. Skyscrapers leaned precariously, their metallic frames warped and melted. Thick clouds of smoke obscured visibility, and strange alien creatures prowled the shadows, ready to strike. Kara's team consisted of Kess, the quick-footed Voltanian, Travel, the perceptive Cephalaxian, and Broth, the sturdy Scanth. They had worked together before, and, despite their differences, they had begun to trust Kara's leadership. "I'll take point," Kara said, her voice calm and assured as they reviewed the holographic map of the simulation. "Travel, I need your sensors scanning constantly for movement. Kess, you'll stick to the rooftops for visibility and ranged support. Broth, you're our shield. Keep the team covered and draw their fire when necessary." The plan was straightforward, but Kara's tone left no room for doubt. "What's your angle, Kara?" Kess asked, as they prepared to enter the simulation. "Simple," Kara replied. "We move smarter, not harder. Let the environment work for us, and don't overthink it." When the simulation began, chaos erupted instantly. The enemy team, led by an experienced Vrakran cadet named Volzar, moved with precision, leveraging their superior numbers and brute force to push Kara's team into defensive positions. Explosions ripped through the holographic streets, scattering debris and filling the air with simulated screams. Kara, however, was unfazed. As her team took cover in the shell of a collapsed building, she quickly assessed their situation. "They're trying to funnel us into a choke point," Kara said, her voice cutting through the noise. "Travel, how many are coming from the north?" Travel's gelatinous form shimmered as he processed the data. 4 heavy units, armed with plasma cannons." "Good," Kara said, a small smile forming. "Kess, find me a rooftop with a clear line of sight to the northern street. Brewerth, get ready to reinforce the south. We're going to make some noise." Kara's plan was as bold as it was unconventional. Using the holographic debris scattered across the battlefield, she rigged a series of traps and diversions. A few carefully placed charges along the northern street created a makeshift barricade, forcing the enemy team to split their forces. Then came the ambush. As Volzar's team advanced, Kara and Kess struck from above, using the high ground to pick off their opponents one by one. Broth's armored bulk drew fire from the remaining units, while Treval used his sensors to locate weak points in the enemy formation. Within minutes, the tide of the battle had turned. Kara's team moved like a well-oiled machine, their coordination outclassing their opponents at every turn. In the observation deck above the simulation, Commander Vezok watched with growing interest. Beside him stood Professor Yilvin, the Veltari xenobiologist who had taken a keen interest in Kara's species. "She's remarkable," Yilvin said, his bioluminescent head glowing faintly. "Her strategies are intuitive, adaptive." "Intuition alone doesn't win battles," Vezok replied, his glowing eyes fixed on the battlefield below. "Her tactics are precise, calculated. She's using the environment, her team's strengths, and her enemy's weaknesses with surgical efficiency." "And yet," Yilvin mused, "she approaches these challenges with an air of ease, as though she's holding back." Vezok's gaze darkened. Perhaps she is. By the time the simulation ended, Kara's team had not only completed the objective, but had done so without a single casualty. The other cadets, bruised and battered from their own simulations, looked on in stunned silence as Kara and her team emerged victorious. "You make it look easy," Volzar said, his tone a mixture of irritation and respect. Kara shrugged. It wasn't easy. We just stuck to the basics. Plan, adapt, execute." But even as she spoke, Kara felt the weight of their stares. She knew what they were thinking. How could a human, a so-called Deathworlder, outshine species that had evolved under far less forgiving conditions? The answer, Kara realized, wasn't just in Earth's harsh environment. It was in humanity's relentless drive to overcome. Later that evening, Kara found herself in the Academy's archives, a vast, dimly lit chamber filled with glowing data streams and holographic displays. She had come here to learn more about the galaxy's history, but instead she found herself scrolling through files on Earth. The archive's AI assistant, a sleek metallic orb that floated beside her, spoke in a calm, neutral tone. "Is there something specific you are searching for, Cadet Voss?" "Just curious," Kara replied. "What does the Federation think of Earth?" The AI paused before projecting a holographic map of Earth. Earth is classified as a death world due to its extreme environmental conditions and the presence of numerous apex predators. However, its dominant species, Homo sapiens, has demonstrated an unparalleled ability to adapt and innovate. Kara studied the projection, her mind drifting to the stories her grandparents used to tell her, stories of humanity's struggles and triumphs. I want to stay calm. What do you think we're so good at survival?" she asked, half to herself. The AI's response was clinical. "Human resilience appears to be a combination of biological adaptability, social cohesion, and cognitive creativity. It is an outlier among known species." "An outlier," Kara repeated, a small smile forming. "I like that."